This is Sawyer Robertson, and you're listening to the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.
Welcome into the Bearcast on SicEm365.com, presented by WellMed Medical Management. Today, I'm here with Colt Barber, and we are going to talk about the college football playoff. Lots of new information that came out this week. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark really pushing for the 5+11 format, which essentially would be your 5 conference champions, 11 at-large bids. That's something that's kind of gained some momentum. You've heard the SEC talk about it. You've heard the Big 10 be against it because they want what they call the 4+4+2+2+1 format, which would give the Big 10 and the SEC each 4 automatic bids. Lots of different information there, lots of different information to dissect. So let's talk about it, Colt. What do you think about Brett Yormark's comments on it? And then what do you think about kind of the other option, which is pushback from the Big 10 and a little bit from the SEC as well?
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. If you're the SEC and you're the Big 10, and you believe you're the 2 best leagues, then it shouldn't matter what format you're using because you're going to get the teams in anyway. So you're saying your argument right now is we're the best league. Okay, you're the best league. So what does it matter to you how you get your teams in? All you're doing is solidifying for when your league is not good, that you're going to get 4 teams in. That's the only thing you're trying to gain in this, because in every other year, you're going to get at large bids. You're going to be in the playoff. It should not matter. So the 4 teams guaranteed does not make sense unless you're preventing from a down year. On the flip side, for the Big 12, if you go 4-4-2-2-1, you're capped. You're never going to have more because you're getting the third potential bid goes to a group of 5 team. It does not make sense at all, other than the Big 12 and the Big 10 being greedy. And greedy, but I mean, everyone admits the Big 10 and the SEC are the best leagues. But there should not be a safety net for those leagues when they are not good. When they beat up on each other, there's parity in the league, and the top falls to the middle. They should not be guaranteed a safety net when their top of the league's not good. And or maybe there's teams that creep up and beat the upper echelon. I don't understand from their perspective. I mean, I do understand. They want the safety net. The Big 12 should not want a safety net for the SEC and the Big 10. They already have too many advantages. So it makes sense that the Big 12 wants a playoffs format that allows the Big 12 to get 3 teams in a couple of years. You never know what's going to happen with that. But 2 might be the cap, but you don't want to limit yourself, just like the Big 10 and SEC don't want to limit themselves on the downside.
I think it all really comes down to, how solid you feel about your conference. And I think that the SEC feels pretty good about their position because they're open to the other format, to the 5+11 format, even though the other one gives them an advantage. But the reason for that is because I think you could argue there might be years where the SEC could get 5 teams in, or 6 teams. Whereas you look at the Big 10, it's like, man, they have 4 teams that are probably going to be in the top 4 every year. And if one of those teams has a bad year, they're very likely only going to have 3 teams in the college football playoff. And I mean, yes, that could change. Maybe you have a Nebraska or Wisconsin or Washington here or there that creeps up. But I just don't feel like those programs are really in that position at this very moment. We saw Indiana do it last year. But again, I don't think that's going to be commonplace. And so I think the Big 10 is kind of sitting there going, we need to make sure we have 4 every year because the bottom of our league is not very good. And there's a lot of concerns that there's not going to be those teams that pop up every other year to support the top 4 teams at the top having a down year. I think it really just comes down to that. And as far as the Big 12 goes, I mean, why on earth would you want to give those 2 conferences a guaranteed 4 spots and limit yourself to just 2 spots? I mean, we've seen this in the Big 12. Like, we've seen teams have really good years. We've seen the conference have multiple teams inside the top 12 and for sure multiple teams inside the top 16. Yeah. I mean, very easily the Big 12 in multiple years would get 4 teams in the college football playoff as long as they were seeded correctly, which is something that will always be a problem. But yeah, I think in general, if you go back and look at how the rankings have been, the Big 12 has been pretty competitive. And so why would you want to sell yourself short when you could end up with a couple of years where you have 4 teams in the college football playoff, but you're sitting there with only 2 spots. That would be crazy. And as Brett Yormark said, he doesn't necessarily say that this is what's best for the conference or for the conferences in general, but it is the best for college football, this 5+11 format. And I 100% agree with that. Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out SIGM 365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
And now back to the Bearcast.
Yeah, all the Big Ten, and you've kind of started on this, and I'll finish, but all the Big Ten's trying to do is not lose parity with the SEC. They want to be on equal footing. As soon as they give this up and they are not equal footing on how many teams are getting in, they're going to lose that battle. That's the reality. There's too many big markets in the SEC for them to stay on that course. And if you don't have that equal footing, well, then money's eventually going to go down. It's going to change. Now you have your, the top of the league that's always going to be there, but the Big Ten has to protect its product. And if they can get those 4 teams to be on equal footing with the SEC, they're going to try to push for that. So I get it. I understand. I honestly understand everyone's positioning on this. But if those 2 leagues truly believe that they are the best leagues, they shouldn't have to do 4-4, 2-2-1. They just shouldn't. Their team should always be there, and it shouldn't matter. And for the Big 12's sake, for the ACC's sake, whatever comes forward with realignment, whatever happens next is going to happen eventually. Whatever happens, whatever format we eventually fall into with Florida State, Clemson, etc., they have to be in position. And fighting for this right now matters. Fighting for this moving forward matters. And if they don't fight for it now, and then more of the tower falls with these other teams, then they're screwed even further. So I understand that they're in power positions, but right now there's enough leverage between the Big 12 and ACC that they can get this done. I surely hope that they will. And it seems like it's at least somewhat trending that way, and people are really coming to their senses. But it's just scary at the same time because the SEC and Big Ten have kind of picked the country apart. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. The ones that are involved love it. The ones that are not hate it. This would just be another domino. I mean, to be fair. And if this happened, it kind of signifies what the ultimate end goal is. And it's just kind of like, hey, here's your cookie for being involved with college football, but we're going to take it to the next level for our conferences.
Right. And the ACC, like you mentioned, they're the ones that haven't been just destroyed yet by realignment, but they would be the moment it's a school like Miami or Clemson gets left out of a college football playoff as the 3rd best team in the conference. And they're, sitting there at, 15 or whatever, or 16, that's going to be a huge issue if they're not in the college football playoff with that result. I also think like the Big Ten and the SEC, I just don't see a reason why you would be so against this. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to get the top seeds. They're going to get the home field advantage. They're going to take that away from the Big 12 and the ACC every chance they possibly can. And for sure, the group of 5 team as well. So it's like you're going to have a huge advantage to advance, a huge advantage to play multiple college football playoff games. So why wouldn't you want to give yourself a ceiling, especially when we know the rankings could be all messed up as well? I mean, you know that like this year when you had Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina kind of right on the fringe there, if this format was in existence, all 3 of those teams are probably getting it. Like that's just the way that they would manipulate it to make sure that, those 3 teams are better than, whoever else's other team. And so that's where you're just sitting there going, man, SEC could have 6 teams in the college football playoff. Why would you not want to give yourself a chance for that? I think that's why the SEC is full on going to agree with this and going to side with the 11+5, which should give everyone enough votes and stuff to get this to pass. But I also think this is the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten right now and why they are not on equal level playing field, and how that's going to change even more if this does get passed. That's not going to be something that the Big Ten is going to love, but I do think it would be good for the Big 12 and the ACC just to give them a chance at a much higher ceiling than what they're currently playing with.
Yeah, you look back, and obviously the 2014 year was one Baylor TCU in the top 7. And I had to go back to where before the final AP, I don't remember what the CFP rankings were. Yeah. But you can start and go through, and there's always that fringe Big 12 team. You have 2 top 10 teams, and then a team right around the top 15. There's several
Oklahoma
of those years
that year.
Yeah. So there's a lot of those that were like that, which now Oklahoma's gone, et cetera. But there's always that. And that's where for the Big 12, the ACC, that you can't give up that potential. You have to fight for that potential in that off year. And so you expect the status quo to be the status quo until it's not. That's for the bigger leagues, SEC, Big 10, for the minimal leagues. Baylor being able to get into the college football playoff as the 16 seed is massive for Baylor. It's Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma to this degree right now obviously wants that spot. But you start going through the list of it and those other programs, that's not what they're shooting for. But for a program like Baylor to do that and have that access is massive. And to rip that away from a program like Baylor, or to for instance, Arizona State, who got in last year, which they were the champ, they were going to got in the top two. But it's just like, yeah, the guaranteed two is great. But in a top 16, 5, 11, you're going to get those top two in. You're always going to get those top two in. And so like they're not going to be outside the top 16 in the 16-team playoff. So there's too many circumstances. There's too many data points that the Big 12 could have had 3 teams in to say, no, you're good. We're not going to do that. It's been there and it's happened. And even without, in my mind, Oklahoma and Texas being involved, Texas wasn't involved in those conversations for the longest times, one-off opportunities, but they were not involved every single year. The Big 12 had those opportunities, and I don't want to see that go away. I don't want to see that third Big 12 team get excited about going to the playoff where Alabama doesn't care if they're the 16th seed. They want to end the playoff, but it's not going to be that big a deal to them. That's how I view it. And it's not good for college football. Yormark said it. It's not just about the Big 12, not just about the ACC, but it's good for college football. That's what I view it as well. Like, why are we trying to destroy every single layer of college football to this degree? Like, let it play out. What makes March Madness great is the parity.
Parity.
Let it play out. Go and play the tournament. Go do what you're supposed to do. The big dogs are still in there, but the opportunity to win these games for the smaller programs has to be available to make this the greatest game in the world, and which it is for a lot of people.
Right. And I mean, you mentioned Baylor getting in, how big of a deal that is for Baylor. It's also just massive for the Big 12. I mean, getting teams in the college football playoff is huge. And so if this does move to 16, which again feels very likely, if you can get to a situation where a couple years you have 3 teams in, that's exciting. And that's something that provides a lot of revenue for your league and allows your league to really continue to solidify itself and stabilize itself. Even if you're making less money than the Big 10, the SEC, it's never going to be comparable, but you're still putting yourself in a position where you can catch up in certain ways, whether it's on the field product or, just get your money a little bit closer to help some other sports even. And that's what you see with the SEC. They're able to help out a lot more sports because of how much revenue they generate every single year. And so I think that's just an area that, is very important and something that can't be overlooked in this process. I think the other point that you made about, the domino effect is kind of the other big problem with this, is that the moment teams start getting left out who are big names, that's going to be a problem if you have a format in which you're only guaranteed 2 teams from a league. Like, that's just setting the ACC up to collapse, honestly. And so that's kind of the other reasoning why I think this would be a very smart thing. I think it's something that's very important to college football, and honestly, keeping college football the way that we all love it. I think this is one of those decisions where everyone has a chance to kind of make things somewhat right in this instance, while also understanding that the Big 10 and the SEC are still going to have all these built-in advantages. This is one of those things that just provides a little more parity and a little more excitement to the game.
Yeah. And so I went back to 2021, which Baylor was in the thick of this. And I'm going to discuss new Big 12 teams, including Baylor, in the top 25. Cincinnati was number 4. Oklahoma State was number 5. Baylor was number 9. BYU was number 12. And then Utah was number 17. So that's a pretty dense number of now current Big 12 teams. And obviously spread out through different conferences. There's not as much, wins and losses. You can't translate that. But those teams were there right on the edge of those. Houston was at 21 that year. So like there's too much evidence to go against that. Like, I think that you have to leave that window open for that one-off chance to happen where the Big 12 gets 4 teams in. Like, why are you going to remove that opportunity? And then you throw in Oklahoma was ranked number 14 that year. So like there's just so much of this why are we going to strip this away and make it never possible of happening for all the greater good of college football? And that's where I stand on it. And nothing's going to change that because I'm a biased Big 12, Baylor fan. But it is what it is. Like, you're going to strip away half of college football if you continue down that route. And I like the 5-11. I think it makes sense. And truly, if the SEC and Big Ten are the best conferences, this is my initial point, they're going to be in there anyways. That's what that's what's going to happen in a 5-11. I just think maybe the Big Ten's a little paranoid about not having equal footing with the SEC,
which we know will happen as well. That seems historically, especially recent history, that would very likely happen, which again impacts their voting. And that definitely does make some sense. I think that going forward, it's just going to be a conversation of when does this actually get voted on? When does this actually come to life? We know it's not going to be this year. It would be for 2026. So we'll see kind of how quickly everything unfolds. It'll be very interesting to follow. Colt, you and I will be talking about it probably again at some point.
Let me go back real quick because I want to go. We're about to end this. So 2022, TCU 3, Utah 11, Kansas State 10. Another example right there within the last 4, you've had 3 now current Big 12 teams in the top 16. So like there's evidence there. Why are we going to just eliminate that and say, hey, it's never going to happen? Utah, TCU, Kansas State were all in the top 25. I mean, all in the top 16 that year. I don't know. I think it's crazy to even have these discussions. Like, why
it's
would
all
we
the
limit
recency bias for what the Big 12 has been the last couple of years since the changes have been made. A lot of that is due to rankings just kind of not really taking the league seriously, which honestly is going to continue to happen until the Big 12 starts having teams that kind of rise above the parity. That's going to be an issue. Like, you need teams who are consistently really good and consistently recruiting at a high level and consistently putting a good product on the field in order to get that respect. But once you get that respect, now you're looking at, 3 teams in the college football playoff because you got 3 teams that went 12-0, 11-1, and 10-2 and actually have some respect in that way. So that's kind of what the Big 12 needs going forward if this format does play out. If they want to ever have 3 teams in it, if they ever want to extend to get 4 teams, you're going to have great performances in the non-conference, and you're going to have teams finally kind of separating themselves and elevating. So that's going to kind of be the next question for the league.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good discussion, man. Like, I just think that for college football, it's fun, and you don't want to take away funness. And for greedy people, you're taking away funness. So that's your attempt. So that's my opinion.
For sure. So Colt and I will be back later this week, but it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a Sick 'em 365 premium episode only. We're going to preview the official visit weekend that Baylor has coming up. Colt and I will probably do one of those every single week from here on out. We still will have some stuff that we'll have on the YouTube side of things, but be sure to check out that premium information. We'll give you all kinds of news and nuggets when it comes to recruiting. Might have some football news as well. It'll be much more premium focused and kind of diving into more of the complex stuff that we can't really talk about on the free side of things. But for today, thanks for listening. This has been the Bearcast on Sick'em365.com.
Join Sick 'em 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sick 'em 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.